D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We hope you are having a wonderful Tuesday. Derek, myself, and David Janes are in Nashville. Willie Donick, one more road game for the Predators. He's in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where the Predators will take on the Oilers tonight. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5 The Game. And I want Willie.
Where it's still cold.
It's still cold, but I want Willie.
Oh, it's super warm today, though. It is really warmed up. It is 24 degrees today. 24. That is a 20-degree swing, which I will take. I will take.
It will be in the 70s
yesterday.
It will be in the 70s upon your arrival back in Nashville. But I want Willie
that's a big swing.
To be fired up today. So before we get to our main topic, I am going to launch a grenade into the proceedings by reading this quote from Alabama basketball coach Nate Oates before the Crimson Tide played undefeated Vanderbilt tomorrow at Memorial Gym. This from Emily Smar, who reports on the Alabama Crimson Tide for the Tuscaloosa News. Quote, Alabama basketball's Nate Oates on Vanderbilt. Quote, they haven't played any real good teams, end quote. Still called the Commodores a good team by the metrics.
I think that'll probably end up on the wall somewhere. That would be probably repeated in the Vanderbilt locker room. But I don't know factually that that's wrong. I think they played some good teams. If Nate Oates is talking about the top 5 or 10 teams, they haven't. So you got to prove yourself every night. Alabama, we know, has been there the last few years. I can't wait. I'm as long as, knock on wood, everything goes smoothly with travel tomorrow, I'm going to be in Memorial Gym tomorrow night. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Derek, that did not work as well as I thought. I should have just brought up Hunter Yurachek.
Yeah, you should. You'd have been better off doing that.
That's what I should have done.
No, listen, Alabama.
I think that's when D-Mace, right? You don't necessarily fire back. You just nod and say, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, you'll find out tomorrow night. Let's just find out.
And we will indeed.
But internally, it's a little different, I think.
We will indeed find out tomorrow night. I was just trying to get Willie riled up to start the show. I want him pissed off for greatness today. It's a GM-heavy show on our program. Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us at 5 o'clock for his weekly chat. But we start with the other GM in our town, that being Titans GM Mike Borgonzi. And Mike Borgonzi addressed reporters today as the Titans season has come to a close. The head coaching interviews are about to start. We have a bit of a timeline for these head coaching interviews, which we will get to in a little bit. But Mike Borgonzi, unlike Barry Trotz, does not reveal much when speaking to reporters. There was a point near the start of the news conference when the power went out and Borgonzi was shrouded in darkness, which I thought was an ominous sign for how this offseason could go. But hey, we lost power yesterday. The Titans lost power today. But they figured it out, and he continued the news conference. But I thought it was a bit ominous when the lights went out on Mike Borgonzi as he started to address the Titans offseason. But anyway, he did even say before starting to field questions that he was not going to go into detail about any specific candidates. And we've seen some of those names, right? Matt Nagy, Lou Anarumo, Kevin Stefanski, Raheem Morris, so on and so forth. But he wasn't going to offer any specifics about those candidates. But he did offer some insight on the coaching search, and that is where we are going to begin. So let's start with his answer to a question on the qualities he is looking for in the next head coach and whether the quote-unquote leader of men type is a priority.
What do you think about an alpha personality? How much is that something you want in that guy? It seems to go with the leader of men kind of.
I think it's a little overrated sometimes. I mean, leadership can come in a lot of different forms. There's leaders that are more quiet, but they're demanding. The biggest thing is being demanding. You don't always have to be heard, be a big alpha. It's just demanding things out of your players and staff, and then having a vision and having standards in the organization. You certainly don't have to be a big alpha personality to do that.
What qualities you're looking for in this person?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a lot to do with leadership, Paul. it's having a clear vision, having standards for what you do. And then, having that person, not be afraid of conflict in a negative way. But being able to hold people accountable is the biggest thing throughout the whole building, Paul, staff, players. And how do you do that? And that person ultimately has to connect everybody in the building too. So you have to have that balance there of, being demanding, connecting people in the building, and just bringing people together. So those are the big things that really we're looking for. And obviously they have to have a strategic vision in terms of philosophy and X's and O's as well.
So that provides us an archetype of sorts for what Borgonzi is looking for in the next head coach. He seemed to emphasize holding people accountable. There were a couple of interesting things, but the other interesting thing we are going to talk about right now, the clip we're about to play. Yesterday, our friend Adam from Portland called in and asked, why do the Titans want to be the Kansas City Chiefs? Mike Borgonzi, of course, came from Kansas City. Kansas City had a ton of success, not so much this season. He was asked about replicating the Kansas City Chiefs model. Here's what Borgonzi had to say.
Is it your goal to replicate or recreate the model you saw in Kansas City? And how important is it to you that the candidate you go after reflects what you saw in Kansas City versus being open to somebody who has succeeded, but maybe not the way you've experienced before?
I'm looking to create the model for the Tennessee Titans with the people that we have here. I've learned a ton of things, Nick, from where I was in the past. I've taken certain things on how we evaluate players and how we work with coaches during that process and how we do certain things. But this is our team here and the people that we have. So I've certainly learned and benefited from a lot of the stuff that in the past. But I think we have a group here that's been in different places and we want to make it our own.
So that was Mike Borgonzi on replicating, recreating what worked well for so long in Kansas City. So, Willie, you heard the news conference. What is your headline from Mike Borgonzi's end of season address?
I think the first headline is that it was only Mike Borgonzi at the press conference and not Chad Brinker, which I thought was significant, something subtle. He addressed that at the beginning. He sort of thanked Chad Brinker, but it sounded to me a little bit of, I appreciate Chad Brinker, but it's time, I think he was trying to show everybody that he is, I'll use this kind of pun intended, he's the chief now, right? He's the guy that's running the show. And I think, D-Mace, you used a good term the other day, one voice. I think we're going to see more of that. And let's hope that Borgonzi's leadership as a young first-time general manager is a guy that, can really galvanize everybody in there and get everybody on the same page, because we have our questions, I think, through the years as to how well that process has gone. I thought he did a good job of answering the questions. He's not super exciting, but I thought he tuned in and he was not trying to be evasive about anything in the press conference. I think he knows how far they have to go. I think he's trying to lean in on some of the things that he likes. In particular, I think he likes the direction the quarterback is going, even though I think he couched it, but without saying this guy's going to be a superstar. But I think he used the word ascending a couple of times, and how far he ascends is probably going to be very defining for Mike Borgonzi's career.
Well, I mean, you're right, Willie. My caption would be, after listening to it, the GM has spoken. I think he was definitive in, what he's looking for. There's a reason, at least I think, that he answered the whole alpha coach or leader that way, because he sees himself as an alpha leader, but he doesn't see himself as one of those guys that scream and yell and this and that. There's a way that he goes about it, the strength that he shows, that he's shown, at least to those inside the building. So he's looking for a coach that is going to exemplify that. You don't have to yell. Vrabel didn't yell. You don't have to scream. That's not what we're looking for. But yes, I think you have to have that alpha sort of mentality in you. But like he said, it comes out in various ways. A guy that's demanding in his players. Vrabel was demanding. He's describing Vrabel. That's what he's doing. Without saying, we talked about, Jeffrey yesterday and the wording people use or try not to use. He was describing Vrabel, Simmons was, but he didn't want to say the name. Borgonzi is describing a Vrabel type guy. Vrabel didn't yell and scream and do all that other stuff. Now, he was a player's coach to a degree, but he demanded excellence out of it, and he didn't care who it was. He ran it a certain way. That's why they had success. That's what they're trying to emulate in their own way. I don't think it's necessarily a Kansas City thing. I think Kansas City is just a byproduct. It could have been any team, but it just so happened to be Kansas City. He wants to develop whatever that is, and he want to enhance it. But he understands that in order to do that, I need a coach that's going to demand something from. He needs to have an alpha personality, but alpha doesn't mean screaming and yelling and beating on the table. He needs to demand, and I don't think they were getting that from Callahan. That's why they made the change.
To that point, Derek, Willie, we know how this works. The pendulum swings wildly from one end to the other when a team makes a coaching change. Mike Vrabel fit the alpha leader of men type. Then they hired Brian Callahan, who was more of a quote-unquote nice guy. Now it appears the pendulum might be swinging back in the other direction. It might not be a Mike Vrabel clone, but it might be Mike Vrabel adjacent, Mike Vrabel light. So my question, too, for both of you, we'll start with Willie, is did Mike Borgonzi drop any clues? Again, he did not mention specific candidates. He was asked about Matt Nagy a couple of times because of the relationship between the two, and Nagy is going to interview with the Titans later this week. But did anything that Borgonzi said today make you go, it sounds like he might be looking at this coach?
I'm not sure it's any particular coach, but my opinion was he did emphasize leader over scheme. I didn't hear him talk a lot about, we've got to get this guy. You got to get a guy that matches Cam's skill set. He did get into that some, but it didn't seem like to me that was the priority. I do think leadership, and that clip that we played was about the alpha, right? The big, strong personality like a Vrabel or a Dan Campbell. And I think he was trying to point out the nuance there of it doesn't have to be a guy like that, but it definitely has to be a guy that when he walks in, this is the guy. This is the guy that runs the show. This is the guy that pulls everybody together. I think he's looking for that guy, regardless if he's a defensive background, offensive background, whatnot. I think he wants that type.
Was there a word or phrase that he used? I mean, I can go conspiracy here. But
why not? Go conspiracy. Do it.
I just think
you love to.
Yes, I do. Believe me, I do. I don't mind not one bit.
Go
you got
for
a conspiracy theory? Let's go.
He wants to hear it. He makes it all ears.
I want to hear it. But no, when he and maybe this is one of those theme words, and maybe we get tired of it. But I think him connecting everyone. I thought about it. I was like, well, shouldn't the GM be the one that's connecting everyone? Like, isn't that really your job? Isn't that supposed to be, I think, Brinker's job now? Making sure everybody, everything is working harmoniously throughout the building. Isn't that his job? But he went to that. Like, that was one of the main pillars, connectivity throughout the building. And in order to have connectivity, there has to be a familiarity. If I said that, I have a very hard time with that word. There has to be a familiarity with the person. So me thinking conspiracy, I would sort of lean toward Nagy in a sense because he's seen him at work. Now, I know he answered, he didn't go into it too much about Nagy, But he did kind of talk about it in a roundabout way. But if I want to pick out anything, it would be the connectivity. Not that he couldn't find it in another coach that they choose to hire, but if I'm thinking, okay, what is one thing within his press conference that may have sort of given us a glimpse at who he's talking about? I say connectivity. I may be completely wrong, and those that are listening to him maybe thinking, man, you are crazy, man. But I'm just looking at it from the standpoint, I pay attention to people's words, and sometimes those little subtle words have a lot of meaning. So again, I could be wrong.
The one thing I appreciate about Mike Borgonzi, and I don't know Mike Borgonzi, I've never met him personally, is the word I would use to describe him and the way he presents himself is competency.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's because I'm comparing him to his predecessor who struggled in those same settings. And I understand that news conferences don't tell the whole story. The person that answers questions from reporters is not the person behind closed doors all of the time. But Mike Borgonzi gives off the vibe, at least to me, that he knows what he's doing. And as simple as that sounds, of course you want a GM who knows what he's doing. Considering, Willie, all of the upheaval and all of the palace intrigue we've been discussing over the past couple of years, who's in charge? Who has final say? Chad Brinker being promoted over the person who was his boss and ran Carthon, all of that stuff. Just having someone who appears as if he is the adult in the room is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys agree with me on just having him up there and not Brinker. I thought that was significant, right? And I think he handled himself well. And I do agree that he has a solid presence. And I think looking back on it, Brian Callahan, I think initially in an interview setting, probably which helped him get the job. And in the first several press conferences, I do think he came off as a very confident young coach. Mm-hmm. But as the adversity piled up and he was tested more, I think that's where he was exposed as a guy that would walk and take the bait. He would walk and hit traps with press conferences. And I think probably that leaked into how he handled the team. There was some vague references today, Derek, about, holding players accountable, etc. Like, I do wonder if in the back of his mind, he was thinking about times where players maybe weren't held as accountable as they should have been in the last year since he's been watching.
Yeah, I think he, and that's why, to me, those words, whether it's connection or connectivity or being a demanding coach, maybe he felt, watching it, that Callahan just wasn't as demanding as he needed to be. And maybe that's just not his personality. Maybe he tries to go about it a different way, meaning Callahan. But Borgonzi is looking at it as, I got a young, impressionable team. I need someone with a commanding and demanding voice that is going to challenge these guys each and every time they walk into this building. Now, I said that in listening to Borgonzi more and more, and listen, if I will admit if I was wrong, and I think I was wrong on this one. After listening to Borgonzi, there's a reason why they let Brownlee go. There's a reason. And it probably was the best reason. It probably was the best thing, even though I think Brownlee is a talent, and I think he's going to play a long time in this league. I think where Borgonzi wants this organization, he didn't want any part of anybody not rowing the boat in the same way. And I understand that. With the new GM, bringing in a new head, I understand. I've been a part of that. So I understand it. So my bad for saying they should have kept him, because after now listening to Borgonzi and understand, like, okay, they did the right thing.
615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Your reaction to Mike Borgonzi's end of season news conference. Didn't say much. He knows how to say a lot of words without giving a ton of insight, but I think there were some breadcrumbs that he laid there for us to discuss as we look at who could be the next head coach of the Tennessee Titans. But your reaction to Mike Borgonzi's news conference, 615-737-1025. We will continue the conversation coming up next. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
Cam Ward got a lot of attention when he said that he wanted to be involved in his coaching search, that he talked with you and Chad. How do you envision that involvement? Obviously, don't see him making the decision on who you hire, but how do you want him involved?
I have a lot of conversations with Cam in my office, and sometimes he says a little too much. But I love Cam because he's all ball like all day. We have a lot of different conversations about things. And I said at some point here, once we narrow down, once we get down to the final candidates, maybe it's a quick hello but obviously Cam's a big part of what we're doing here. So to not involve your players and value their opinions on things, I've done that a lot in the past, and I think we should do that.
It sure sounds like Mike Borgonzi is more on Willie's side here regarding Cam Ward's involvement in the coaching search. Remember that argument from a few weeks ago? Maybe a quick hello from Cam Ward. But other than that, I can't imagine Cam Ward's going to be sitting in these meetings as we discussed a few weeks ago, Derek.
I don't think that, we ever said that he would sit in on every meeting.
No.
I think what I said was once you get it down to your final guys, whether 1, 2, sort of like what Borgonzi said, I said Cam should be able to come in there and talk with them. And if you want to go over something schematic wise, then okay, let's see what you're thinking. But outside of that, the contract and all this other stuff, no, he has no, he shouldn't be a part of that. But if you're just talking about, hey, peeking your head in, stepping in, talking, maybe, throwing something at him real quick and see what he thinks and see what you think, that's okay. You want to get sort of that input, but everybody, oh no, he doesn't need to have any part of it. Your own GM is saying, yeah, he's going to have he's going to have a part. It may not be the biggest, and I don't think anybody ever said, because the first thing I said was he doesn't need to pick the coach, and everybody said, oh, you're saying he needs to pick. No, I didn't say that. I didn't. If you listen to my words, I said, yes, at some point, when you narrow it down, he should be a part of, hey, how you doing? Getting to know one another. Hey, let's throw some on the boards right quick and see what you think and, kind of spitball a little bit. That may take 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but it's about football. It's not about what the organization is going to do. It's not about how his contract is going to look. It's not about how, do I get the call plays or do I get the control plays at the line of scrimmage? No, it's just, let me see what you know. Let me throw something at you real quick, or let me throw something at you, coach. That's all.
I think it's exactly what I was hoping his role was going to be in this process, and I think it was a really smart way to answer the question for Borgonzi to talk about how much he appreciates Cam Ward's willingness to be all in. I like the term all ball all the time. I think that fits. And he was laughing because I do think it's fair to say that Cam Ward, if you said, hey, Cam, would you like to be in this interview with so-and-so? I think he would say, yeah. And that's a good thing. But it's smart for Borgonzi to let everybody know that that's what he wants to do. But the role for picking the coach has got to be past what the quarterback likes. And he shouldn't get special treatment, especially at this stage of his career, where as much as he wants to know everything and is eager to learn everything, 1 year in the league is not a qualification to help have real input on who the next coach is going to be.
To that end, Matthew from Jolton on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, you don't introduce your child to a potential step-parent on the first date. You don't let your soon-to-be second-year quarterback do the initial interview.
No one ever said he should do...
I think
no one ever said he should be in there for the initial interviews. Hell, you don't. Amy don't even want to be a part of the initial interview because she knows, like, okay, when you dwindle it down to a few people, then that second go around, then I'm going to be a part. So okay, so after that, after Amy's a part, you got another sort of a round of what you're gonna be talking about. Why shouldn't Cam, be able to come into the room? Like Borgonzi said, and hey, how you doing? It ain't gonna just be a hey, how you doing, and walk out the room. He just kind of sped it all up for you. But there would be a hey, how you doing? Cam will step into it and talk a little bit about football, about nothing, about his, his family or Cam's family. That's what they would talk about. So what's so wrong with that?
I don't think there's anything wrong with Cam Ward. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I don't think there's anything wrong with Cam Ward having a minimal role in the process when, as Mike Borgonzi said in that clip that he actually said earlier today, that once we narrow the group down, we'll bring Cam into the mix, let Cam get to know the coach a little bit.
Mhm.
I think that's perfectly fine. Kyle says, I think whenever you let someone go / fire them, the intangibles you talk about in bringing someone in are the same things that the previous person lacked. The fact that GM mentioned accountability is a big insight into what Callahan lacked.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, and being demanding. And, you know, for this team, and for any team for that matter, whether it be a veteran team, but really for a young team, you need those guidelines, those parameters. You need a certain way. You got to coach a certain way when you have a young group. I've seen coaches do it with young team, and I've seen coaches do it with sort of an older team. And there's a way you go about it. You don't change like philosophy wise in your core what you teaching, but there's a way you got to go about it. He needs someone that is going to be a little bit more demanding than the last guy was. We talked about the whole pendulum swinging from Vrabel to Callahan. Now it's sort of, let's go back more toward the middle. Let's get a guy that's not Callahan, but not quite like Vrabel. If we can find somebody sort of in that sweet spot, then we'll be good.
So another thing that Mike Borgonzi said today, as we start to see some of the head coaching interviews get reported. We talked yesterday in the 5 o'clock hour about whether we should move certain candidates up the list because of their relationships with Mike Borgonzi. Matt Nagy, of course, Steve Spagnuolo, for example, Mike Kafka in New York, worked in Kansas City as well. And today, Borgonzi was asked about weighing those personal relationships when conducting the coaching search. Here's what he had to say.
Through that process, how do you go about weighing your personal relationship or familiarity with some of these candidates as opposed to someone who may be new? Because it's natural to lean back on your familiarity.
That's a good question. You have to make the best. You have to remove that piece, that biased opinion on anybody that you might have a relationship with, and you have to make the best decision for the organization. And that's really the bottom line. You know, who's going to be the best leader and coach for this organization.
So that was Mike Borgonzi talking about weighing the personal relationships in the coaching search. And Willie, I learned at a young age that sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's easy, as we have been doing, to make the connections to Kansas City. Who worked with Mike Borgonzi in Kansas City as the leaders in the clubhouse, so to speak. But according to Borgonzi, at least what he told us today, he is going to attempt to remove that element from the search.
I liked how he answered the question because, number one, he doesn't want to tip his hand. Like, if he really is going to lean on guys he knows, he probably is better off not saying that, especially out of respect to the other candidates that he's going to look at. I think he acknowledged a natural bias of people that you know. But the one thing that I think he emphasized more than anything is that they've been researching this since they fired Brian Callahan. They've been working on this. So they're not just going to bring a guy in that he, quote, doesn't know and have that be the first thing that he's ever said. Well, let's bring in, pick one of the guys that he's coming in. That won't be the first time that he's ever really looked deeply at this. And so I think that will help him sort through who the best candidate is.
Yeah, and we talked about this briefly yesterday. How much are you weighing, having a personal, relationship with someone over, or familiarity with someone over someone you don't quite have a personal or relationship with or don't know quite as well. And, his answer, I think was a really good answer. And also, you don't completely take it off the table. Because like I said yesterday, that may be the difference from you hiring this guy and that guy. Those guys may be neck and neck, and those guys may have interviewed really well, and Amy like them both. But because you have more of an intimate relationship with that person, that may tilt the scale. Not to say that it's the end all be all, but that may tilt the scale, and that's okay. If the two guys that you end up on a finalist list, if you believe in both of them and you're trying to figure this thing out, wouldn't you automatically lean toward the person you know a little bit better than the other person?
I think it's only natural.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think it's a bad thing. Now, if you let that be the crux of your decision, like the end all be all, then we got a problem.
One texter says, having lived in Chicago when Matt Nagy coached there, he is not the man the Titans need. He'd be Brian Callahan Mach 2, whatever that means.
Well, and I don't know much about Nagy, but what I have noticed, I feel like there's a narrative among Titans fans. Like there's a lot of smearing of, please don't take that guy. Do you agree that seems to be the consensus among the fans?
With Nagy specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, I've said that I think Nagy's hiring, if the Titans hire Matt Nagy, and again, he is the betting favorite in Las Vegas, take that for what it's worth. I think it will be met with a collective, meh, that's fine. Cool.
Oh, I think I'd go a step further. I think it would be a negative.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure why. I don't really see why.
Well,
he's
again,
that
we've talked about
than other names that are out there, but there seems to be, at least this is just how I'm seeing it. I haven't looked at everything, but are you guys seeing it differently?
We talked about this yesterday, that to your point, Willie, there are differing opinions I've noticed on Nagy. On one side, he had a winning record as head coach over 4 seasons in Chicago, went to the playoffs twice with Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields as his quarterbacks. That's one side. That's the positive spin. The negative spin is Matt Nagy botched the development of 2 top 10 quarterbacks in Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields. And his defense carried him to his Coach of the Year award and his winning record in Chicago. Those are the 2 differing opinions I see, Derek.
Yeah, and I just think people, it sort of elicit this, why? Like, if you hire, it's like, are you trying to replicate Kansas City? That's what goes through people's mind if Nagy was your guy. I think the first thing would be, oh, here we go. We're trying to be Kansas City, because that's what it was when we hired Vrabel. Luckily, it worked out for some years, but it was, it's a New England guy. It's a Belichick guy. Is this going to work? End up working for a few years. I mean, obviously, we saw what happened in the last couple of years. But I think the fan base at first will be met with, oh, here we go, trying to be the Kansas City Chiefs. We don't have Patrick Mahomes. We don't have Travis Kelce. We heard some of that yesterday. And we've heard other people either text or call in and say, no, not Nagy. We don't have the players Kansas City have.
6-1.
I get it.
Go ahead.
No. I was about to say, I get it. But, I mean, if they choose to go with them, then you just got to see how it goes.
615-737-1025. Your reaction to Mike Borgonzi's news conference. Do you agree with what Willie said about Matt Nagy? He's getting the vibe that a lot of Titans fans would be upset by that hiring, if that is indeed the case. By the way, Matt Nagy is scheduled to interview with the Titans on Thursday. 615-737-1025. We're also going to answer this question, and I want you to help us as well. How confident are you that Mike Borgonzi will lead the Titans back to respectability? 615-737-1025. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Let's talk loan pronto. Remember, if you need cash out of your home's equity, if you're staring at some bills at the start of 2026, and maybe it's a credit card bill that's piling up because of the high interest on it, maybe it's a car you want to get paid off, or something else where you need a big pile of cash, look at your home's equity and look at Loan Pronto and their rapid equity loan program. You can get a ton of cash. You can get it quick. No hard credit pull up front. You probably won't need an appraisal. It's much easier than it used to be to do these things. Fast, easy cash from your home's equity, and then boom, knock out the credit card bill, knock out the car loan, any other high-interest loans you might have. You'll save money each month, and you can even skip your next 2 house payments. So act now. Call Loan Pronto by going to loanpronto.com is the website, or just call 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Start this new year by wiping out
What is it specifically about Mike Borgonzi that gives you the confidence that he can turn things around for next year?
He's got a vision. We see eye to eye. The draft class that he brought in proved it. And he's a GM who's connected to his players. He wants to know things about them, about their family, everything. So he's within the building, and it's good because no matter whether we want to get someone in the draft, we want to sign somebody for agency, he's gonna make the right call. He's gonna make the right call at the head coach. And we're gonna all be behind him.
That was Cam Ward yesterday discussing Mike Borgonzi. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's go to our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunted.com and welcome in Dylan in Antioch. Dylan, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking the call. So as a Titans fan and just hearing you guys talk about it, I don't think that people would be upset with Matt Nagy or not like the hire. I just think in this coaching cycle, there's not really a single coach in here that gets you extremely fired up like McCarthy, Nagy. I personally like Robert Saleh just because of that clip earlier where he went crazy on the Jacks coach, told him he was going to rip his head off or whatever. So I kind of like that, but I just think this coaching cycle seems pretty uninspired from a coaching standpoint, but that's just the read I get up off of it, and I'll take your comments off there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dylan. And I would agree with Dylan's point about the uninspiring nature of this coaching cycle. Kevin Stefanski rocketed to the top of the list after being fired by the Cleveland Browns. Robert Saleh is going to be highly sought after. He can't interview because the 49ers are preparing for wild card weekend. So he is unavailable to be interviewed. But I'm sure as soon as he is available, he is going to take a ton of interviews, Derek. And based on what we heard from Mike Borgonzi, holding people accountable, all of those things, I get the sense that Robert Saleh may fit that archetype maybe more than any of the other potential head coaches out there.
Yeah, that is a possibility, but we won't know exactly, how this thing is going to shake out. One, because, is Saleh going to be a serious candidate for the Tennessee Titans once he's able to be interviewed? I don't know. Who will, after the first round of interviews, who will sort of be leading the pack? Will it still be Matt Nagy sort of in the top slot, or will another coach sort of emerge? This thing is going to continue to flip-flop. But I think, through it all, I would be a fool to say Matt Nagy name wouldn't last, wouldn't be a part of the final two that they were sort of deciding on.
FanDuel, by the way, for what it's worth, Willie, Matt Nagy still the betting favorite at plus 230. Lou Anarumo, Colts defensive coordinator, at plus 360. Vance Joseph at plus 380. Cliff Kingsbury and Mike McCarthy at plus 600. Cliff Kingsbury, quote unquote, mutually parting ways with the Washington Commanders today after he had one hell of a season as Jaden Daniels offensive coordinator last season. It all fell apart this season. Jaden Daniels couldn't stay healthy. And we can throw Cliff Kingsbury into the mix. Cliff Kingsbury has been a head coach enough in his life for me that I don't need to see him as a head coach again. He'd be a great offensive coordinator, as he showed last season. But I thought those were interesting betting odds for what it's worth.
Well, also that Saleh's not even mentioned there. I do wonder how that will change when he's eligible to be interviewed. I don't know how that works. Anybody that would make a bet on who the next coach is going to be has probably a little too much free time in my mind. But it is noteworthy, I think, to track what Vegas thinks, right? Vegas has knowledge of a lot of these things. But yeah, I think it's always challenging. Most coaching searches probably don't have the obvious sexy guy, right? I mean, most of the time it's a group of names like this, guys who have had a chance, it hasn't worked out, up and coming guy on a hot team. It's usually the same kind of mix.
Skyler on our text line, to your point, Willie, about Nagy and the vibe you're getting from Titans fans. Skyler says, I don't hate Matt Nagy. If anything, his first go-around with the Bears had to have taught him a lot of what and what not to do with this next time. At the end of the day, I trust Borgonzi. I think he's a smart guy, and he knows that his job is on the line with this decision. So I don't think he will just go with his buddy. Borgonzi is going to bring in the best guy available. And this is the question I want us to discuss right now. Derek, you can go first. How confident are we that Borgonzi will lead the Titans back to respectability? We only have one season of sample. He oversaw a 3-14 team. Take that for what it's worth. You can look at the draft class. Some promising players in there. We're going to talk more deeply about Cam Ward's rookie season as the week progresses, but Jim Dike, a 4th-round pick, turning into a Pro Bowler. Maybe he's an all-pro as a specialist. We saw some promising rookies. So I think a lot of people are judging Borgonzi at the moment based on his first rookie class. But now that you have a full year of Borgonzi, and now that we know that he is in charge of the roster, we know he's in charge of the coaching search, how confident are you that Borgonzi is the guy to drag the Titans out of the cellar?
I mean, listen, my confidence level for them in regards to trying to get this thing, back on track, I'm going to give it a shot. Listen, you have to give, or you can't blame Borgonzi for the things that have happened in the past. He wasn't a part of this. I don't say you necessarily blame him for the 3-14 season that they had this past season. I think the players that he has drafted last year, I think they are promising. I think the players the year before, even though it wasn't his draft, I think they are promising. So if he can continue to build on what he had, which meant that first with Sweat and those guys and Spears, and then build on what he did last year, I would tend to lean on the side I trust him, because of I'm looking at the draft picks he had last year, and these guys are contributing and they're developing, and that's what you want. I see the group that got drafted the year before that. A few guys in that group is developing, even though again it wasn't his doing as far as drafting, but he's a part of it. So if I'm just looking at these two past drafts, the last one in particular, then I got to lean toward trusting him. I do, until otherwise noted.
Willie, same question. How confident are you in Borgonzi to lead the Titans back to respectability?
Reasonably. I think he has good mentors and people to lean on. He mentioned having a contact in every building. I think that was an interesting statement. So for a guy that is as young as he is, and he's not super young, but he's young in the job. I feel like he gives off an air of confidence and calmness, right? He doesn't seem like he's in over his head. And that's just me from the outside. And also, from the people that you talk to about him, I think he has pretty good credibility around the league, but you never know until you go through it, right? This is the first time he's done it. And so we'll see if he can come up with the right guy. So much is riding on this hire.
Jeremy in Clarksville says, everything I've heard about Borgonzi is that he is a professional and businessman. Businessmen know you don't hire your friends in most cases. You ask peers and hire the best. And Derek, you said something earlier about the Jarvis Brownlee trade. When the Titans traded Jarvis Brownlee, you were completely against it. You did not understand, and Willie was as well. You did not understand why the Titans would give up so quickly on a young corner, a young defensive back. And the one thing that I will give credit to Borgonzi for doing, and you just said it yourself, Derek, and I agree with you, is the man has conviction. The one thing that I get from listening to him talk is that he has a plan and he's confident in that plan. So you may disagree with the decisions he makes. You may not like the fact that he traded Jarvis Brownlee, but there was a clear reason for him to make that trade. And I admire the fact that he is strong in his conviction. He wants to build the Titans a certain way, even if it meant trading a young player who could have been part of the solution.
But he also understands that if Jarvis Landry would have gone to the Jets and he had some good games, but he's still learning. If he would have gone to the Jets and then there would have been a complete 180, this kid would have been one of the top cornerbacks in the league, then he would have caught a lot of flack for that. And I think he understood that. But in the bigger scheme of things, he knew this is a young team and an impressionable team. And those guys that may be good players and may end up being that locker room guy that you want them to be. But at this time, they don't have time to wait on guys to adapt to the culture that they're building. They don't have time for it. So you may be a good player and you may turn out to be an awful, but at this stage of your career right now, where we're as an organization and where you're in your career, we don't match. We don't. And you may have to go somewhere else. Now, in 4 or 5 years, if you double back, you may be a different player. We'll be a different organization, hopefully. And then it may work. But right now, where we're at as an organization, you can't take on a personality like that. Not to say that Jarvis is a bad person, because I don't know him, but what I've heard of, he's a good dude, hard player. It's just he has a mentality, he's still learning. And it takes a special coach and a special team to foster a personality like that.
615-737-1025. How much confidence do you have in Mike Borgonzi to lead the Titans back to respectability? We heard from Mike Borgonzi today. We will continue to discuss some of his comments from his end of season news conference earlier today. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, we know the Titans are going to hire a new head coach. Are there any current Titans coaches that we would consider keeping on staff? 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us in 1 hour for his weekly conversation. Trevor Maddich will join us in 20 minutes as we continue the conversation on day 2 of the Titans offseason. Before we get to our next topic, some reaction on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, if Brian Flores isn't under consideration for the head coach position, it's clear Mike Borgonzi isn't trying to hire the best available coach and leader of men. Your thoughts, Derek?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that. You just want to hire, or you want to interview, guys that you feel that have a legitimate shot at getting the job. I understand they're going to have a lot of interviews, or, more than probably the average team that's looking for a coach. I know they're going to, and rightfully so. But if you don't plan on hiring the dude, don't even bring him in. That's my philosophy. If I don't plan on hiring you as my head coach, I'm not bringing you in to interview for my head coaching job. I'm just not. And I understand, certain things they have to do, but I'm not messing around. I'm looking for I'm looking for a specific guy that's going to lead this team. And I'm not just bringing in guys to kind of fill them out. No, I'm going to bring in guys that I believe that's going to come in and have a legitimate shot at being the head coach of this football team.
WB in Thompson Station says, we should have confidence in Borgonzi. Look at how he's been doing and the organization he's been in. Is there a better football organization than Kansas City over the past 10 years? So, look, this is an important offseason for the Titans in general, but specifically Mike Borgonzi. We learned on Friday from Amy Adams Strunk that Mike Borgonzi is leading the coaching search. He is now a GM in the quote-unquote most traditional sense. So we know if things go wrong, who to point the finger at. So a lot riding on the decisions that Mike Borgonzi makes. One texter quickly says, if Harbaugh gets let go, where does he fall into the Titans' possibilities? Do we believe that Harbaugh is going to be let go in Baltimore? Do we truly believe that?
I don't know. I hope not. And let me clear.
And why would he want to come here? He's going to have the choice of any job he wants.
Yeah. But let me clear something up. By me saying that just a few minutes ago about when the question was asked about Flores, doesn't mean I don't think Flores would be a legitimate guy that you bring in. I'm just saying, if you don't think this guy is going to be a guy that you're going to hire and you just bring him in, then don't. But I think Flores would be a guy that should be considered for another head coaching job this cycle around. So by saying that, I'm saying, yeah, you should bring them in, but I'm not going to say you would, if you don't, then you're a whatever organization. I'm not saying that.
So
I think if Harbaugh jumps into the mix, I think you will see a league-wide reaction as to people jumping at the chance to get him. I think they would be like a Vrabel. I'll believe it when I see it. I know that there's a lot of frustration as to how it's ended, that, maybe you feel like you should be in another Super Bowl here, but that guy has won. That guy's a heck of a coach. And D-Mace, you can speak to that better than anybody. I would think that you would take your run at him if he jumps in on the market.
But if I'm Harbaugh, if the Baltimore Ravens decide to part ways, and I think they will phrase it, both camps will phrase it as it was a mutual parting of the ways, because he deserves that, and the organization deserves that as well, and not to, they fired Harbaugh wanted to leave. I think it needs to come out as if it does happen, a mutual parting of the ways, because both parties are respected throughout the NFL. But if you've watched Harbaugh like over the years, he may need a break. If indeed they choose to, or both camps choose to say, you know what, we're just going to part ways. I think Harbaugh just needs a break. So if I'm the Titans, I'm not sure. Again, I think Harbaugh's a hell of a coach. Hell of a coach. But if I'm the Titans, getting him after a year sitting probably would be better. Getting him after the year he sits and kind of is able to decompress and then come back. Not now. If he was, but I know a lot of teams he would bolt to the front of the list as far as coaching candidates.
I mean, Kevin Stefanski got fired yesterday. I believe he's interviewing with the Giants tomorrow. So some of these coaches are jumping right back into the mix. But speaking of coaches, we know that with a new coach comes a new coaching staff. And Mike Borgonzi was even asked today about Bones Fossil specifically, and whether the new head coach should consider keeping Bones Fossil around. Mike Borgonzi said what we would expect him to say. It's up to the new head coach, but Bones Fossil did a tremendous job this season, and I think we would all agree with that. Paul Kaharski of paulkaharski.com reported yesterday that the Titans are not firing members of Brian Callahan's coaching staff at this time, rather telling them they are welcome to stick around, and a new head coach will make decisions on their fates after he is hired. They are also free to chase other opportunities and leave if they like. And the two coaches I'm thinking of, the first I just mentioned, Bones Fossil. The special teams unit took a significant step forward. And I think we would all agree, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the new head coach should strongly consider keeping Bones Fossil on staff. Agree?
Yes.
Willie? Yes? Okay. The other coach I'm thinking about is Bo Hardigree. He doesn't have to be the play caller. Remember, Brian Callahan gave Bo Hardigree play calling duties right before he got fired. He called plays for the majority of the season. He's the quarterback's coach. I'm not saying that Bo Hardigree should stick around as the play caller, but he appears to have a good rapport with Cam Ward. He can go back to being the quarterback's coach without the play calling. I'm wondering, Willie, if the new head coach should consider keeping Bo Hardigree around.
Consider, yeah. I think it all depends on what that coach's vision is for how many guys that he has coming in. Sometimes I think a coach might come in as a really good coach and have a lot of contacts, but the right guys that he had in mind just aren't available sometimes. Maybe they already took another gig. So I think that's probably an underrated part of the job, is building your staff and realizing who's out there, who's not. How deep is your Rolodex to get the right people? You agree, D-Mates? Like, I feel like Brian Callahan, at the end of the day, made some mistakes on his first staff that were costly.
Yeah, I think he did. And, he understood it. I think ultimately at the end, just like Vrabel made some mistakes with his coaching staff and he had to rectify them. It was like pulling teeth, but he had to, make some decisions on some guys that he was friends with. So you're right. Bones, whoever comes in, if you don't hire Bones Fossil, something's wrong with you. Like, seriously. I mean, the guy has done nothing but revitalize a special teams unit that hadn't done much in over the years. And what he has done is made them one of the better special teams and one of the best return team units in the National Football League. But another guy I think we need to pay attention to, it could be two of them, but Luke Stocker. I think what that tight end room is becoming.
The tight ends coach.
Yeah, the tight ends coach. Yeah. He's developing that group. All of them. He's developing that group. And Chig now is hitting. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with Chig moving forward, but Chig has developed. He may not look like what people thought thought he should, but over the years, he's gotten better. In particular, this year. Maybe it's because it's a contract year. I don't know, and I don't care. But he's developing. He's gotten a lot better. You got to contribute some of that to Luke Stocker. You got to contribute some of Gunnar Helm developing throughout the season to Luke Stocker. Some of these other tight ends that they have on a roster that when they get in the game, they show that they can play. That's the development, the developing of Luke Stocker, or his part in developing, because ultimately the players have to do their part. But I think Luke Stocker is another coach that the next regime that comes in should really seriously think about keeping him. I mean, listen, there's other guys, Tracy Rocker, I believe, that you should think about keeping. But I think the two main guys is Bones Fossil, and I think Luke Stocker.
Look, Nick Holes, he gone, right?
Yeah.
When he didn't get the play calling duties after Brian Callahan relinquished them, I felt like the Bobs in that segment, in that scene of Office Space. What would you say you do here? Like, I don't know exactly what Nick Holtz does. So I can't imagine the non-play calling offensive coordinator is sticking around. And Denard Wilson, I imagine, is not sticking around either. Paul Gaharski, in that story I referenced, he wrote that Denard Wilson said he wanted an interview for the head coaching position, but is not getting one.
Well, he's gone.
Yeah, but look, I do want to give credit, Willie, to Denard Wilson. He was dealt a really bad hand. I mean, look at the secondary he was putting out there near the end of the season. As I said before, I would not have been able to pick any of them out of a police lineup. And good for those players for getting some reps in NFL games. But Denard Wilson was dealt a crappy hand. He appeared to make the most out of the situation, but sometimes that is the hand you're dealt. So although he's not likely coming back, I will give an appreciate. Okay, actually, speak of the devil. David James just tells me via Adam Schefter that John Harbaugh has been fired.
Oh, wow.
Talk about timing.
Well, there you go.
Sources, John Harbaugh is out as the Ravens coach, according to Adam Schefter. So talk about timing. John Harbaugh, now on the list.
Again, and I'm gonna stick by what I said, and it may not be popular.
Denard Wilson might all of a sudden be changing his tune a little bit, right? Denard Wilson's background with John Harbaugh.
Yeah, you may be right. But again, I'm not gonna change my tune. I love Harbaugh.
You think he might just need a year off?
I think he might just need a year off. Like, there's a reason why I think Vrabel took a year off. I think there's a reason why Mike McCarthy is taking a year off. Now, he may end up taking a couple of years off, but at least that 1 year off. Sort of to re-energize yourself. New thoughts. Being able to look at
and
things
he knows
differently.
his stock is not going to go down.
Exactly.
His stock, if anything, will go up. The further he's away, he can do media if he wants to. We've seen a lot of coaches take that path, right?
Yeah, but again, if they were to hire John Harbaugh, I would be the first person. I don't care. I would be the first person to say this team is headed to the Super Bowl pretty soon. I would because I seen what he did. I have seen what he did. I knew the team that we had, and we had some good players. We had a good team, but I saw what he was able to do. And what that team ended up doing, even after I left, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. So, again, just because I think that maybe a year off for Harbaugh, maybe just for his mental, so he can recalibrate himself and you may get a better version. But if they were to hire him, hey, sign me up for it.
Throw John.
I think you jump in the line.
Yeah.
You jump in the line right away until you hear from him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take a year off. You take your swing.
Yeah.
Throw John Harbaugh into the mix. Fired in Baltimore after 18 seasons. 18 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens. We received this text from a Ravens fan before this announcement from Adam Schefter that the Ravens have fired John Harbaugh, excuse me. And Derek, I want you to tell me how accurate this is. Quote, from a Ravens fan, I can promise you, you do not want John Harbaugh. He is 45-62 in his tenure in one-score games. He was almost fired in the middle of the 2012 season, and without Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, that locker room would have fallen completely apart. That saved his job for a couple of years, and then Lamar Jackson saved his job for a couple of years. He has almost been fired out of Baltimore twice, and things outside of him have saved his job. Everything has changed in Baltimore since 2018, 2019, except for head coach and quarterback, and the problem isn't Lamar.
That's the same thing they're saying about Pittsburgh. Same thing they're saying about Pittsburgh. This and that. Now he almost lost his job. They were thinking about, listen, I get all that. When you've been at a place for 18 years, there's going to be a time in that. Andy Reid got fired by the Philadelphia Eagles. Get that. Andy that's won, what, 3 Super Bowls? He got fired by the Philadelphia Eagles. Why? Because it was just time. And there were times in between that where they thought about firing him. So hey, listen, the Raven fan has a right to their opinion. But if you've been at a organization for 18 years as the head coach, there's going to be times in there or seasons where, man, you better win next year, or this may be it, or people always putting you on the hot seat. So I'm not surprised that he was on the hot seat at one point, but that doesn't mean that I don't think he can come and revitalize an organization. I just think that maybe he needs a year of just nothing.
But then the question is, and we will get back more into this. We will have Trevor Maddich in just a few minutes. Quickly, Derek, I said this before the news broke that the Ravens fired Harbaugh. He can have his pick of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the Titans are the job that he would pick based on all of the other openings we know right now? The New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders, the Arizona Cardinals, so on and so forth. The Cleveland Browns. Do you think the Titans would be the most attractive job to John Harbaugh?
It all depends on what he would be.
Does he want to help build something back up, or does he want to go into a ready-made situation?
Exactly. Do he have enough energy and stamina and mental, fortitude to take on this and to see it through? Because it may take a couple of years to kind of see this thing through. That's for him. Once they make it official, that's for him to decide whether, it's not a bad job. It's a head coaching job on a billion-dollar organization, in a league that makes billions. So this job is a good job, but is it a good job for him? That's the question. Not that is it a good job? Hell yeah, it's a good job. But is it a good job for him? And I don't know, but I know what I've seen of John Harbaugh.
Adam Schefter says John Harbaugh now is expected to become the top head coaching candidate in this hiring cycle per multiple league sources. Multiple teams now are expected to be interested in hiring him, and his presence is expected to have big ramifications. 615-737.
Do you think we needed any sources to be able to tell you that? Thanks a lot. I didn't need any. I would have said the same. He's the number one candidate, hands down. I don't care. You can nitpick. This guy missed the field goal that he should have made. They'd still be playing right now, and this is probably a non-discussion. This guy has won a Super Bowl. He's won a ton of games. He is the number one candidate, hands down.
615-737-1025. We will take your reaction to John Harbaugh being fired by the Baltimore Ravens after 18 seasons. We'll talk about that and more with Trevor Maddich coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vinging, 1025 The Game.
Let's tell you about F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. It's now 2026, and F&M Bank wants to roll out their formula and try to recruit you because your business means more to them. And that goes for you if you're a business owner, a small business owner. They love working with them. They have 20 locations in our listening area. They've got 6 over in Clarksville. They've got 1 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky to the north. And, of course, they're scattered about Middle Tennessee, West End Avenue in Nashville, Murfreesboro, Mount Juliet, Springfield, just to name a few. The way you figure out the nearest location to you is go to myfmbank.com. They are the sponsor of our Take It to the Bank segment every Friday at 5:45. We always have great fun with that. And I've got to have a better 2026. I've got the lead, but it is shrinking a little bit here. I've got to hold on to the title here. D-Mace is the defending champ. So that's every Friday at 5:45, and it's brought to you by F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Look up the nearest location to you. You'll be glad you did. F&M Bank, member FDIC.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, pleased to be joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com by Trevor Maddich, who is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, right before we gave you a call, the news broke, courtesy of Adam Schefter, that the Baltimore Ravens have fired John Harbaugh after 18 seasons as their head coach. And we know that a lot of teams now are immediately putting John Harbaugh at the top of the list. Derek believes that Harbaugh would best be served by taking a year off. But I'm wondering, with all of the openings in the league now, there are 6 others minus Baltimore, of course. Do you think the Tennessee Titans job would be enticing to John Harbaugh?
I think it would. They have a quarterback who's the first pick in the draft, who over the last month of the season or so really started to come on, even though the team around him was not good enough to really support him much. I think, with a high draft pick this year, they have a chance to stock up talent. They have, I think, the highest, the most cap space of any team in the NFL. So I think this is a team that could be built from. There are a lot of needs on this roster, but there are also a lot of good pieces to build around on both sides of the ball, especially on offense, but on defense with Jeff Simmons. And, there's some good pieces to build around there. I don't see why this wouldn't be a great destination for any head coaching candidate. I think the question would be for them as they interview the team, because a guy like John Harbaugh wouldn't just be interviewing, trying to sell the team to hire him. Every team that he interviews with would have to sell him on your question, Adam. Why should he want to come to us? And I think he just needs to make sure that he's in alignment with the Titans ownership and front office, and make sure that all that cap space they intend to allocate and not just save. But I think that John Harbaugh coming over to Tennessee, I think would be something he should absolutely consider.
So, Trevor, I'm going to put you in the laboratory for a moment. Imagine there's a machine where you can build the perfect head coach for the Tennessee Titans based on the qualities of that coach. That coach can be defensive-oriented, offensive-oriented, the alpha type, leader of men type. If you are building what you believe is the best possible coaching candidate from the ground up for the Tennessee Titans, what qualities are you putting in there?
Well, that being the case, John Harbaugh would not be he wouldn't qualify for the first one, Adam, because I think the first one is that he be able to get the most out of Cam Ward. This is Cam Ward's franchise to win with or lose with for the foreseeable future. And I think the best thing the Titans can do is, all other things being equal, bring in an offensive-minded head coach. Because the last thing you want is for a defensive-minded head coach to have a great offensive coordinator who gets good results from Cam Ward and then goes on to be a head coach somewhere else. Your head coach is unlikely to go be a head coach somewhere else. And so your offensive system, your offensive philosophy, and your offensive guru are more likely to remain intact for a longer period of time for Cam Ward. So all else being equal, I would start there. Get a guy who can maximize Cam Ward and be here with that offensive system long-term for Cam Ward. Second thing is, it needs to be a guy who's got great leadership. And, there's a lot of words thrown around in association with this head coaching job for the Titans, and one of them is accountability. One of the great things about Mike Vrabel is that you had no question who was boss. Mike Vrabel was boss. And if you crossed him and didn't perform up to his standards, there was going to be hell to pay. And that's something that I think was utterly lost with the Titans under Brian Callahan. So I think that's another thing. People think that a player's coach is a coach that's a nice guy that the players get along with. I don't see that as the definition of a player's coach. I think a player's coach, let me put it this way. If I'm a player on the Titans, I think that a player's coach, from my perspective, is the one that's going to get the most out of the guy on my left and my right, because I know I'm going to give everything I've got. And so if you take Jeffrey Simmons, for example, as a leader on this team, who would he consider to be a player's coach? It would be a coach that will not allow any messing around. It will be a coach that will demand the very best in every minute of preparation and will demand that players stay focused even away from the complex so they don't create distractions for themselves or for the team. So that would be the second thing. I would want a coach that's a player's coach by definition of he will get the most out of these players, whether they like it or not. Now, after that, there's a whole lot of things that you could talk about, right? But getting the most out of Cam Ward, number one, having the offense stay consistent with Cam Ward is number two. And then right there with that is the ability to have discipline and accountability and get the most out of every individual on the team and make sure that everybody fears the head coach like they fear a drill instructor or a drill sergeant, or out, in the field with the military unit, they fear the sergeant more than they fear the enemy. That's where you get everybody pulling the cart in the same direction. And that's what they have lacked here recently.
Now, Trevor, now that, it's coming out, and I don't think it's as been official yet, but that John Harbaugh will be released by the Baltimore Ravens as their head coach. Do you think that there will be some skepticism on a guy being at a franchise for so long and him just knowing that franchise, and then now after 18 years, he's back in this pool of water, and he may be, at the top of just about everybody's list, but because he's been at an organization for 18 years, almost 19, could that be seen as a negative by organizations when hiring?
No, that's a great question. And I think that it should be seen as a positive.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what works. He knows what doesn't work. And a lot of times guys just need a change of scenery. Whether it's a player or a coach, a lot of times things just get stale and it's time to move on. And you start over in a new place, taking with you the lessons that you learned at the old place, and you can go to the next level at the new place. And change sometimes just for change's sake can be beneficial. I was talking to Gary Danielson, the great college football analyst on CBS, doing SEC games and then off to the Big Ten, I think. And, and he was saying that when he was in college, there was a study that was done that always stayed with him about how to jumpstart production in an office setting. And what they found in this experiment is that if they made a small change, like making the lights in the office a little bit brighter, all of a sudden for a short period of time, everybody would be more productive. But what was odd was if they also made the lights a little less bright, they had the same short-term improvement in production. It was a change that sort of made the stale paradigm a little more interesting to people. And so I think just a change of scenery for John Harbaugh wouldn't mean that he would bring any kind of baggage with him from Baltimore. I think a change of scenery would mean he could start fresh with everything that he was able to be successful with in Baltimore. And the truth of it is I, talk about having an offensive-minded head coach. I still think that would be the best thing. I think Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, I think that would be a very interesting hire for the Titans. But if they did bring in John Harbaugh, I think he would be a better head coach here than he was at Baltimore. And so I think he should be high on everybody's list.
Now, Borgonzi had his press conference today, and Adam asked, what would be the headlines if we had to put a headline on it. And mine was the GM has spoken. I think he made himself assertive in his interview. It was the buck stop here, sort of speaking. I don't think we've heard sort of that kind of tone from a GM in a good while. It's always been this, well, I got to, talk to this guy, and it's a collaborative effort. But it seems like with Borgonzi, this is my job, and I'm going to approach it as such.
Yeah, it has to be that way. And the fact that it may not have been for the last several years is a real problem with this organization having a clear direction. It's like a 6-year-old child who knows that his parents are not on the same page. And he goes to his dad and says, Dad, I want to have a big bucket of candy to eat. And his dad says, no, you can't have that because, that's bad for you. And he goes to mom and looks at mom with those big puppy dog eyes and says, Mom, I just want some candy, and melts her heart, and she gives him candy, plays one off the other, right? Well, you can't have that. Just like you need two parents to be on the same page and present a united front to their kids, you've got to have a boss in that front office. And if there's a general manager and a team president and then a consultant to the owner and all kinds of different people that are vying for power in the organization will bog down. And I think it's good that Borgonzi is taking that role of the buck stops with him, because that means that the discipline comes from him too. And that's important.
Trevor Maddich is with us from ESPN. If you're just joining us, the Ravens have let John Harbaugh go after 18 years as the head coach of the Ravens. So we're trying to wrap our arms around that in real time and also getting Trevor's perspective on a lot of different things. Trevor, let's flip it around. The Ravens haven't been looking for a coach for a long time. Who are the candidates for them? That's a pretty attractive job.
Yeah, that's a real attractive job. And again, I don't know what specific names, but if I'm an offensive-minded coach, I would love to go there and see what I can do with Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson is an NFL MVP in the regular season, but he hasn't had success in the postseason. And I don't know if you guys have a better perspective than I do on why that is, but I think any, confident to the point of arrogance head coach, especially an offensive-minded one, who thinks that he can do better than anybody else, could take Lamar Jackson and turn that MVP in the regular season into an MVP going forward into the postseason and become a Super Bowl winner. And so I think as long as Jackson is there, I think that would be a very attractive place for that reason alone. Now, the Ravens have a reputation of being outstanding in the front office, of building a 53-man roster that can win, but they haven't won in the playoffs in terms of making deep runs. And so that will be the big question. Who could do that? As far as individual guys, I don't know. But if I'm an offensive-minded head coach and I get a chance to coach Lamar Jackson, I'm there with bells on.
Trevor, let's switch to college real quick. You've got some big playoff games coming up Thursday and Friday. I've been in the hinterlands for a while. I may not have gotten the last few details, but how do you think Ole Miss is going to be able to sort out the whole coaching thing as they try to get to a chance for a national title? It's a really intriguing story.
Yeah, it really is, Willie. Their head coach from the regular season the last several years went off to be the head coach at LSU before the playoff. That's Lane Kiffin. He allowed the offensive coordinator and several other critical offensive assistant coaches to coach with the team with the playoff. And, the offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss Jr., has just been brilliant. A lot of people think it was just Lane Kiffin's offense. That's all anybody talks about, Lane Kiffin's offense. And it is overall, but people forget that Charlie Weiss Jr. was calling the plays. And I think he relishes the opportunity to get out from under Coach Kiffin's shadow and show that, hey, he's a great offensive mind in his own right. And the thing about this game is that you've got good on good. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, who's a transfer from Division II Ferris State, who came in at the beginning of the season to be a backup at Ole Miss, started because of an injury, and I think it was like 8th in the Heisman. It's just fantastic. His performance against Georgia last week was fearless. I mean, fearless. He would drop into the pocket and let that ball rip without any hesitation at all. He would scramble around to avoid blitzers and fire the ball without any inkling that he's not quite sure what he should be doing. He was fearless, and he'll need to be against Miami because Miami's defense is better by an order of magnitude than Georgia's. Georgia's the tied for the last in the SEC with sacks. Miami's one of the best sacking teams in the nation. They don't need the blitz to get it done. And Miami's secondary is a lot better than Georgia's as well. And so I think Trinidad Chambliss is going to face the best defense that he's seen all season long. And the question is, can he continue to be fearless and fire that ball into tight windows without paying a price and having it picked off against a better unit?
Okay, real quick, Trevor, the other semifinal. Indiana, we were all just blown away at how they just dismantled Alabama. Your thoughts on their performance?
Yeah, Indiana is they don't have any weaknesses. I mean, they're just incredibly balanced in the game. against Oregon in the regular season. Indiana won in Eugene 30-20, and it was worse than that because Oregon's offense only scored one touchdown. Their other one was a pick six by the Ducks defense. But Indiana smashed Oregon on the ground, and they stopped the Oregon run. Oregon only ran for 81 yards against Indiana that first time, even though the Ducks averaged over 200 on the season in rushing yards. And it's because Indiana excelled at getting behind the line and creating tackles for loss, creating sacks. And you would like to think that Oregon would just say, okay, we're not going to let them get penetration on defense. We're not going to let them behind the line to stop plays before they get started. But that's a wish. It's not a plan. And I think Indiana will be able to create that disruption again. I think from Oregon, you'll see a lot more activity to their tight ends. They got two tight ends that go about 250 pounds each that are both have wide receiver skills. They combined for 3 catches in the first game against Indiana. They combined for 8 catches against Texas Tech, and they still struggled to move the ball because Texas Tech also got a lot of disruption behind the line of Oregon. But Oregon won that game because, their defense was great. So I think that in this game, Oregon is going to have to make their tight ends, Jamari Johnson and Kenyon Sadiq, the MVPs. And if you see a lot of completions early to the Oregon tight ends, that's what's going to give Oregon the best chance to beat Indiana, because Indiana just is basically flawless. And what they will need, Oregon, is mismatches. And those mismatches come from the tight ends.
Trevor Matich has been our guest on D-Mace. Vingan and Donahue joins us every Tuesday and is brought to you by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, great stuff as always. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Adam.
615-737-1025. We will continue to take your reaction to the Baltimore Ravens firing John Harbaugh and what that could mean for the Tennessee Titans, because they do happen to have a head coach opening. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick 102.5 The Game. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Predators General Manager Barry Trotz will join us at the top of the hour. So Barry Trotz coming up at 5 o'clock. But again, we are reacting to the seismic news in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens have fired John Harbaugh. It has not been made official, I do not believe, but it has been widely reported that the Ravens and Harbaugh are parting ways after nearly 20 years together. And of course, the Tennessee Titans have a head coaching vacancy, so that's why we're going to keep talking about John Harbaugh. Now, I have the distinct pleasure of sitting next to a man who played a decade and a half of outstanding football in the NFL, that being Derek Mason. He also happened to play for John Harbaugh for 3 seasons in Baltimore. So Derek Mason intimately knows John Harbaugh as a coach. Now, I will confess, I do not follow the Baltimore Ravens on a daily basis. The gentleman on the other side of the glass, David James, is the diehard Ravens fan on the show. But here's one thing I do want to ask you about, Derek, as it relates to John Harbaugh. I know that John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson were one of the most successful coach-quarterback combinations in recent history. They won multiple division titles, #1 seeds in the AFC, made it to the playoffs many, many times. I know that they did not have a lot of success in the postseason. But again, from afar, it always appeared to me that there was some sort of disconnect between John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. I preface this by saying, people, I am not comparing Cam Ward to Lamar Jackson, but I am wondering if by some chance John Harbaugh was the coach of the Tennessee Titans, how his relationship would be with Cam Ward. Because again, from afar, it always seemed like there was this, well, are Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh on the same page? I felt like there was a lot of that, especially recently. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think after a while, that's what it sort of looked like. The more Lamar got hurt, the more this team underachieved. And when I mean underachieve, I mean not going to the Super Bowl, because since Lamar Jackson has been underneath center, they've always been a perennial, Super Bowl predicted team. People expected them not just to get in the playoffs, but to, be one of the top teams that they feel will get into the Super Bowl. And when you don't reach that year after year, I think there is sort of, and John's been there a long time. Lamar hasn't been there as long as John. But there starts to be this, sort of not lack of communication, but miscommunication in a sense. John won the Super Bowl the first go around a different way. It was defense eccentric, even though Joe had a hell of a playoff run that we haven't seen. And I don't think we've seen it after him. That still was a defensive minded team. And now this becomes sort of a offensive led team. And it's led by the quarterback, and the quarterback is leading in a different way than the last quarterback led that he had helped lead to a Super Bowl. And maybe they just never, after a while, they could never really, not to say that they were not on the same, they just could never stay on the same page. Let's just say that. It seemed like they could never stay on the same page. So this may be a good thing for both parties. For Lamar, he gets a fresh face, a fresh voice in the building. And for John, now he gets to potentially go somewhere else and start anew. But there may have been a small disconnect when you're talking about, Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. I just think they didn't stay on the same page each and every time.
Dustin in Hopkinsville on our text line says, you definitely interview him. It was fireable that we didn't interview his brother. Same here, in my opinion.
Maybe his brother didn't want to be interviewed by the Titans. I mean, we don't know. I mean, they never gave a answer to why they didn't or why they didn't. And John never gave. I mean, Jim didn't say anything about the Titans. So, maybe Jim didn't want to be a part of the. He had a place where he's from, the California area, I believe they are. So he wanted to be back in California to coach. He coached at Stanford. Not the Chargers. Well, they are still the Chargers, LA Chargers. I'm sure it's in that area that he grew up in. So that was the best fit for him. So I'm sure that the Titans, if they don't interview him, I think it would probably be because he is choosing not to interview.
Sean on our text line says, $1 million question. What would it take to persuade John Harbaugh to come to Nashville? More than $1 million.
Yeah. you have to make your pitch.
About
Borgonzi
18 million of them.
Yeah, Borgonzi made his pitch. Well, then that's a question for Amy Adams, too. How high will you be willing to go if it's a bidding war, which it would be, if Harbaugh, as Derek points out, doesn't elect to just sit back, recharge, and let his stock grow? Because people will only appreciate his tenure more as time goes by. Everybody would like to pick at his flaws right now, like this whole thing about, hey, how did he get along with Lamar? Relatively speaking, he got along great with Lamar. They won a ton of games. He was the MVP of the league. More than once,
Twice,
right?
Yeah. Should have been 3 times.
They've won a ton of games. Nothing goes smoothly all the time in the NFL over 18 years. This guy is borderline Hall of Fame already. And you think about a couple of games, how close these games are in the playoffs. I mean, you could probably think of 6 off the top of your head.
We do have another name.
Brady,
I'm sorry
right?
to interrupt. Willie, but we do have another name interviewing for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job. Drum roll, please. Per Adam Schefter, interviewing Friday for the Titans head coaching job, former Cowboys head coach and NBC analyst Jason Garrett. David James is cracking up back there. According to Adam Schefter, Jason Garrett is interviewing Friday for the Titans head coaching job. Willie, Derek, your thoughts?
Okay. All right.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Why not?
Hey, if you want to turn over every rock, all right, go ahead. I don't even know.
A lot of games.
I don't even know when was the last time he coached. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Hold on.
No,
Jason Garrett.
It's been more than that.
It's been more. Yeah, it has
Jason
been,
Garrett last coached the Cowboys in 2019.
Yeah, oh, man, come on.
10 years as Cowboys coach, an 85-67 record.
This is what I'm saying.
But he's only 59. It's not like he's like 75 years old.
But this is what I'm saying. But this is what I'm saying. Do you realistically think, and I could be wrong, and if I am, I will come on these airwaves and say, you know what? I apologize. I was completely wrong. But do you think that he has, what would you think would be his percentage of getting this job? What would be the odds of him getting this job? Is that even on any odds makers website?
That's a good question. I will say that our fearless leader, Chase McCabe, who is a Cowboys fan, has texted us and said very colorfully, hell no.
And
Jason Garrett.
And listen, I know Chase probably speaks for a lot of the fans that have saw, that watched, not Jason Garrett.
Yes,
Jason Garrett. I don't know why I was thinking of Witten. But like, seriously, like, is anybody excited about Jason Garrett's name being in there?
If you're gonna be all over Matt Nagy for, his record and some of these other guys who have woeful records who are interviewing, Jason Garrett won 56% of his games, 85 and 67. And, he had some big years. He was the coach of the year at least once. As I'm looking at this, I don't see how you would say it's shockingly bad. That just like every Cowboys coach, they haven't been able to win in the playoffs. But, his credentials are pretty good.
615-737-1025. Your reaction to the news that just broke, courtesy of Adam Schefter. The Tennessee Titans will interview Jason Garrett on Friday for the head coaching position. Jason Garrett, of course, the former Cowboys head coach. He has been an analyst on NBC for the past few years. 615-737-1025. We will pick up this conversation in just a little bit. But coming up next, Predators GM Barry Trotz will join the program. The Predators looking to end their road stretch with their 5th win in 7 games tonight against the Oilers. We'll talk about that with Barry Trotz coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. We are awaiting Predators GM Barry Trotz. He will join us momentarily. Again, if you missed it, the breaking news courtesy of Adam Schefter right before we went to break. Sources, former Cowboys head coach and NBC analyst Jason Garrett is interviewing Friday for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job. And the reaction on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com is interesting. Chad says, the one excuse I'll give Garrett is working under Jerry Jones seems like an impossible task. That probably is true. But if you're looking to excite people, I don't think Jason Garrett is the answer. But David Janes is on the line.
But relative to who? I mean, that's the...
Yes.
That would be the question, right? Nobody would excite you other than maybe Harbaugh, right?
Yes.
Can we come to that conclusion? There's not a single person that would say, I'm excited about that. So I don't know why Garrett's any different.
Well, we will pick this conversation up shortly because in the meantime, let's go to our phone line. We are pleased to be joined by Predators General Manager Barry Trotz. Hi, Barry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Hope you had a good Christmas and New Year's.
Yes, thank you for asking. We all did. So tonight, this long road stretch finally comes to an end. 7 consecutive games on the road if you include the game at Minnesota before Christmas. The team has a chance to end that road stretch with 5 wins in 7 games tonight against the Oilers, who are always a tough challenge. But what has impressed you so far about the team's performance over the past couple of weeks in all of these road games?
Well, I think number one is resiliency, because it seems that we don't show up in the first 10 minutes and are always coming back from behind. And it's very difficult to, I'll say, consistently do that on the road to come back. I just think that the group has been very resilient. I think that Saros has given us timely saves, and same with Noonan in those games. And we've gotten contributions from different aspects of our lineup. Example, one night it's Steven Stamkos having a big night, or Ryan O'Reilly, or Philip Forsberg, and then the next night it's Michael Bunting's line steps up and gets us 3 or 4 points in Calgary. Or you get I love the fact that this team's come together. The other night, a guy like Nick Hague stepped up and when there was a little bit of a cheap shot on McCarron. We were playing short in terms of our forward group because we went 11-7, and Hague recognized the importance of stepping up from a defensive standpoint, stepping up and sort of setting the record straight with the young Beecher player from Calgary for his teammate. So he didn't have to do that. And then he ends up getting good karma and scores a winning goal late in the game. So just all those aspects where the teams come together, and you talk about playing for each other, they really are. Steven Stamkos blocking a shot at the end of the game the other night. So all those things are good signs that they're having fun, they're playing hard, and getting results.
Barry, around Thanksgiving, I imagine you were the most popular GM in the NHL based on where the team was in the standings at the time. I imagine you were fielding a lot of calls about your players, but over the past month and a half, you're one of the best teams in the league. You're firmly back in the playoff mix. So has the call volume changed? Are you receiving as many calls? Are you taking fewer calls now that the team is back in the playoff mix?
No, not at all. I think about the same, really. I think our plan hasn't changed a whole lot. I think everybody, I got an opportunity to go to the World Juniors and ran into a number of the general managers. And I think everybody is just, fielding calls, trying to figure out, a lot of teams are trying to figure out if they're going to be sellers or buyers, or what's their options that they might be able to make a move or look at selling something. So I think there's a lot of indecision in the league right now. But that I think we've set our plan and we're going forward with it.
So Barry, as we look ahead, you mentioned the World Junior Championships. A lot of people had their eye there. a little disappointing that the Canadian team and the American team couldn't move a little further up the bracket there. But some big moments for Brady Martin and Riker Lee, a couple of the first-round picks. And I know Cam Reed as a defenseman isn't a headliner, but I'm told he played very well also. How did you think your 7 prospects looked in the tournament, particularly with guys at the top like Lee and Martin, who a lot of people are focused on?
Well, I think both, they're underage players. I think the impact of Brady Martin especially for the Canadian team, he was that driver that sort of dragged his line with Michael Hage and McKenna. They really sort of set the tone. He was the guy that was going to all the difficult places, just getting feedback from a lot of the Hockey Canada officials. They all said that he had that it factor in terms of that gravitational pull that he has. He pulls people into the fights. And obviously when he got hurt, it was a little bit of a blow to Canada, because he was one of those guys that would find a way. So all the reports on Brady as the player that we thought that has a lot of substance in his game, goes to the hard areas, has a little bit of it factor. All those things seem to line up. For us, Cam Reed, an underage defenseman, was playing with Zane Perrick as really their sort of top pair in terms of the offensive part of it. And I thought Reed did really well being an underage and playing with a partner who is as talented as Perrick, but hard to read. It's like playing with Roman Josi. Not everybody can do it. So I thought he did a really great job. And then I thought, Ivan Kovic coming in and really halfway through the tournament becoming sort of the number 1 goaltender for Canada. I thought that was really encouraging from that standpoint. And then on the American side, I think you saw people who watched, you saw the Riker Lee's ability to get involved. The puck sort of follows him, and obviously scored a big goal to get the game tied up against Finland. Unfortunately lost in overtime. But you could see, being an underage, how important he was in terms of driving offense for the Americans. And obviously Teddy Stiga, with his speed and his ability to be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife and play different positions, had a real good impact in the tournament. So just those between those two teams, I was really, really pleased with all those players. Really pleased with Nieminen, who was a 6th-round pick. Played a very important role for the Finns. Played a lot and he was an underage as well. That said a lot about our prospects, having so many there that really had a lot of impact.
Let's keep on the prospects for one more question, because this is a guy that's been off the radar a little bit, and Igor Surin, who plays in the KHL. And I'm just curious how you keep tabs on a guy playing so far away, because everything that is coming back, I saw a recent article in The Athletic that he might be, he was arguably the number 1 prospect, or the fastest rising prospect in the organization. What are your thoughts on him, and how do you follow him?
Obviously, we follow him with our Russian scout Denis Tartiko, but we watch him in stats. Our development team is watching and communicating with him. I watch on a regular basis all the stuff that they send. I've been in communication with a number of the coaches that I know that are coaching in the KHL that coach against Thurin. I talked to his coach to see how he's doing, and I all those things are adding up. He's having a terrific year. He's one of those I'll say impact young players. Arguably one of the best Russian players that are playing in the KHL this year. He's going to have a big impact on our hockey team in the future, which is really exciting. And he arguably is probably, you talk about Brady that we took as 5th overall, but Surin might be as important to our future as a franchise as anybody else.
That's exciting to hear. You got some business done while you've been in Minnesota. We were happy to see Justus Onanen sign a new 2-year deal. He's played his best hockey here in his last few starts. He's still pretty young. So how do you evaluate his future going forward, and tell us about the thought process in signing him to the next deal?
Well, I think that number one is, you look at the package of Eustace is he's big and he's athletic and he's got a great work ethic. He's got all the attributes to make. We've been very fortunate to have some tall Finnish goaltenders that have done very well for our organization. I think the fit with our Mitch Korn and Ben Vanderklok and our goaltending team has been a really good fit for him. And obviously the relationship that he has with Saros, all that I think points to the fact that, he wanted to stay here. We wanted him to stay here because we think that there's a real good upside with him. And he feels very comfortable. I think it's a contract that makes a lot of sense for both sides. Gives him a little bit of more of a window in the National Hockey League with people he trusts and works with on a daily basis. And in terms of the deal, I think it works well for both sides in terms of length and the money in the deal. So we're really happy that he's back, and I think our goaltending's set for the next couple of years.
Barry Trotz is with us on D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick. And Barry, last week I asked you about Jonathan Marchessault, who remains out of the lineup because of injury. The team has won 6 of 8 without him, and he was struggling before the injury with 3 goals in 18 games. So I'm curious, has his absence made you reanalyze his fit with the team at all?
No, not really. I think you have to be fair. A couple things that, just to have very good clarity with Jonathan. Jonathan started out the trip with the group in a rehab type of situation. He hit a plateau. We had him come back and reevaluate, and the doctors have taken a little different course with him. So I'm hoping that he's back on the ice. Actually, I think he went on the ice today with Mark Borgonzi, getting him back into our group. And one of the things that you look at the success that Stammer's had, or the success that Forsberg's had this year, in certain I'll say bits of the season where they've really taken off, and they've been playing with O'Reilly. The one guy who has the same sort of skill set, is known as a goal scorer, shooter, is Marchessault, and he really hasn't had that opportunity to play with O'Reilly. So maybe that happens when he gets healthy here. But he's a goal scorer. He's a competitive player, and this year he got off to a little bit of a tough start, and he actually got off to a tough start last year and ended up with, I believe, 56 points. And so there's lots of good hockey left in Jonathan. So we just got to give him opportunity. It's very easy to judge. We sort of got a little bit hot, and everybody's stepped it up in terms of our team game, our 5-on-5 game, our defensive game, and our goaltending. Special teams have all sort of come together at the right time, and the team's had a good run here. But you're going to need everybody, and Jonathan will be a big part of it going forward as well.
Barry, a question a lot of people have, including myself, as I've watched the team since late November reel off 13 wins in 19 games. Is this sustainable? And I understand that the game is played on the ice and not on a spreadsheet. And I'm a nerd, and I look at the numbers, and the numbers would suggest to me that at some point the team is going to come back down to earth eventually. So as you watch the team, and you know a lot more about this than I do, why do you think this run that you've been on over the past month and a half is sustainable?
Well, I think, if it is going to be sustainable, it'll have to have the same type of all-in commitment that the team has put together. They're going to have the goaltending to be at a level that it's been on in terms of coming up with timely and big saves. I don't know if it'll be sustainable because of our starts. I think we've been able to fight through those starts, and you know, when you have given up as many goals in the first 2 minutes of a hockey game that we have this year, I am actually amazed at the fact that we have the record that we do. You know, so I can't answer that wholeheartedly that it is sustainable, but if it is going to have some, I'll say, some legs to it, it will have to have all those elements sort of continuing to play at a very high level. And, you know, it has in the past. A couple of years ago, we were able to do it. And last year, we weren't able to do it. So, you know, we're 41 games in, or whatever it is now. I think you're going to have a buy-in from the team because they're in the mix. And when you're not in the mix, it's hard to have that buy-in. So I think the buy-in will be there. I don't know if the results will be there, but if their buy-in is there, you're going to get a good effort every night, and you know, you'll win your share of games.
Barry, just picking your brain as a hockey person who has coached against these guys over the years, the Predators have not been able to solve McDavid and Draisaitl the last handful of times they played. Going back a few years, the Oilers have had the upper hand in this head-to-head series. How did you try to contain those two guys? It's impossible certain nights, but even relative to their performance, they have dominated the Predators. What did you try to do to hang in there with guys who can just take over games the way they can?
Well, number one, you know, I'll trust me. We had great success against Edmonton when Connor wasn't there, and then he arrived, and the success sort of weaned over the time, and then I ended up in the Eastern Conference for a number of years, 8 years. But when he came into town, two things that we always talked about is do not give him any freebies on the power play, because they're just lethal. You know, if you look at our record when we play Edmonton, I'm almost, without looking at it, I could probably say that they've got at least one goal every game, maybe 2 power play goals every game. So you've got to make sure that you don't give them any freebies on the power play. And the other thing that I really is you're going to have a 5-man back mentality with. I say you got to sort of muddy the track a little bit. You're going to have to stay in front of them. You're going to have to just bump them a little bit. You know, he draws penalties. He creates space. He finds Draisaitl. You're going to have great awareness and sort of gang tackle Connor. And when he's playing with Draisaitl, you got to gang tackle him, and then you have to be extremely aware of where Draisaitl is. He goes to those quiet areas, and you think he's not dangerous, but they get the puck there, and he's the best at shooting a puck from that real tough angle where you think it's sort of a safe zone where he's not dangerous. And we always just try to take away the middle of the ice as much as you can, keep him to the outside. You can't really stop him. You can't hook him, but you're going to have bodies and layers through the neutral zone as much as you can.
Predators GM Barry Trotz has been our guest on D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick. He joins us every Tuesday during hockey season. The Predators have one more road game to go tonight at Edmonton. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5 The Game. Barry, as always, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the game and get home soon.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
615-737-1025. By the way, I should note that Leon Draisaitl has 43 points in his past 17 games against the Nashville Predators. 43 points in 17 games, an average of 2.53 points per game.
I would call that a Nashville buster, right?
How many is that? How many games?
That is 17 games. 43 points in 17 games in his past 17 games.
Yeah, the Oilers have won 14 of the last 18 against the Predators, and McDavid's numbers are almost as impressive. I think he's averaging something like 2.5 points per game against Nashville. So you talk about containing, just trying to slow them down, muddy the water. Nashville has not done that over the last several years. Now, under Andrew Brunette, they've played better out here, against them. I think they took them to overtime last year. They have two games in this building this year. But this is going to be a really interesting test because the Oilers, as great as those guys are, and they're both having, the typical seasons for them. Draisaitl's got 57 points in 42 games. Connor McDavid's got a 15-game point streak. He's got 72 points.
He's
in
killing
42
it.
games.
He's killing it.
He's incredible.
It's absolutely
all-
incredible.
But despite that, they've won less than half of their games. They're only 4 points ahead of the Predators
Because they have
in the
no
standings.
depth. They have absolutely zero depth.
So that is what you have to do when they are not on the ice. And this is what's unlike the NBA, where LeBron James or Michael Jordan, pick your superstar. Those guys are going to be out there for 40 minutes at least out of a 48-minute game. Those guys are on the ice for 25 minutes or so, a little bit less than half the game. You've got to get it done when they're not on the ice if you want to be successful against the Oilers. And you can't let them completely take over and have a great day at the playground.
By the way, old friend Connor Ingram will be starting in net for the Edmonton Oilers tonight against the Predators. Again, that is an 8 p.m. puck drop, 7 p.m. pregame right here on 102.5 The Game. 615-737-1025. Since we were talking to Barry Trotz, some more news has emerged regarding John Harbaugh, who has been fired by the Baltimore Ravens. We will bring that to you coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick off to the rink in Edmonton, where the Predators will take on the Oilers tonight in the final game of their road trip. That's an 8 o'clock Central puck drop, 7 o'clock pregame right here on 102.5 The Game. The major news of the day in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens have fired John Harbaugh after 18 seasons. It has been made official within the past 30 minutes or so. Some new reporting from Adam Schefter. First, John Harbaugh is expected to emerge as a favorite for the head coaching job of the New York Giants. Harbaugh will be in demand for many teams, not just the Giants. Schefter adds, in the first 45 minutes after Harbaugh was fired this afternoon, his agent, Brian Harlan, said he received calls from 7 NFL teams expressing interest in his client. There currently are 7 NFL head coaching openings, including Baltimore's. That could mean teams that have head coaches are still calling about John Harbaugh, but we know the Tennessee Titans among the 7 teams that have an opening. The other news of the day, far less important than that, but it actually relates to the Tennessee Titans. Also, according to Adam Schefter, former Cowboys head coach and NBC analyst Jason Garrett is interviewing Friday for the Titans head coach opening. So here are the scheduled interviews according to various reports. Colts defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo will interview with the Titans tomorrow. Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy will interview with the Titans on Thursday. Now we know Jason Garrett will interview on Friday. Former Browns coach Kevin Stefanski will interview with the Titans on Saturday, and former Falcons coach Raheem Morris will interview with the Titans next Monday, a week from yesterday. So Anarumo, Nagy, Garrett, Stefanski, and Morris, the first scheduled interviews for the Tennessee Titans. And man, people are the reaction to the Jason Garrett thing. One person asked me what the F I was on when I announced it. I was just trying to get y'all riled up. Jason Garrett, look, again, Jason Garrett coached 10 seasons in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys, won 56% of his games, 55.9% to be exact, 85 and 67 over 10 years with the Dallas Cowboys, 5 playoff appearances, 2 wins. But the one thing, look, I need a Cowboys expert. I can't wait to hear what Chase McCabe has to say about this tomorrow on Chase and Big Joe, because he is a Cowboys fan. But the one, whenever there's a sizable gap in coaching, Derek, it always gives me pause. Not to say that Jason Garrett couldn't coach in the NFL again, but he hasn't been an NFL coach in more than 6 years. So whenever I see a gap that large, I tend to put my hand up and go, like I know with Jason Garrett, people were like, I would put my hand up regardless. But when I see a gap that long, am I wrong to be a bit cautious about that?
You're not. I think there are other teams that would be cautious of that. It's not like Jason Garrett, is a Super Bowl winning head coach, and he did all these great things while in Dallas, and they were in the NFC Championship game. None of those things happened. Now, was he a good coach? Yeah, he was a good coach, but his teams never reached the potential that, well, hell, I think Dallas fans, they think every year is the year. So I guess every year they never, no matter who's the head coach, since Jimmy Johnson, they have not. The season has been a disappointment. But is he a good coach, or was he a good coach? Yeah, but there's a reason why he got fired, okay? And it's been 5 years, and nobody has hired him. Nobody. Now, a part of it could have been him having a cushy gig, and, there's less pressure in that realm than it is as a head coach. It could be that, or it could be teams are like, nah, your time came and it went, and we're not backtracking. And this may be something that his agent now is putting out. And, hopefully he can get more interviews in this wave, because there, how many coaching vacancies were there last year?
That's a good question. I'll have to look that up. 1 second.
So there's 7 as we sit now. There's 7.
Correct. So last year, here are the new coaches from last season. Mike Vrabel in New England, Liam Cohen in Jacksonville, Ben Johnson in Chicago, Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas, Kellen Moore in New Orleans, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, and Pete Carroll with the Raiders. So that's seven first-year coaches
so
with
it's
their
seven
new teams.
now, and it could be more. And this agent may be looking at it as, okay, this may be a time because there's 7 now, and there could be 2 or 3 more where the pool is open. There's, the pool has become bigger with jobs available. So why not put my hat in the ring and see what happens? So, maybe it could be that. But if I'm the Titans, I'm not sure, would he be a realistic candidate for the head coaching job?
I should correct the record. Jason Garrett has not been a head coach since 2019. He didn't make it through 2 seasons with the Giants as their offensive coordinator. He was fired in November of 2021, less than 2 years on the job as Giants offensive coordinator.
See, and that
he was on Joe Judge's staff.
That may be another contributing factor why he hasn't gotten the job. It's like, okay, you got fired, and then you take an OC job, and you get fired again after 2 years, which means you were not doing a good job, or your coaching staff wasn't doing a good job. Why do I need, at least for the Titans, why am I interviewing you to be a serious candidate for this job? I'm not doing that.
Well, isn't it also doing your research?
Yeah.
Right. Like just because I know what you said earlier, that your opinion is if the Titans have no intention of hiring someone that they're interviewing, don't interview them. But it could be a fact-finding mission.
Yeah.
Maybe you're hiring them for a different position. Maybe you will hire them down the road. You're just trying to gather some more information. This is from the ESPN story back in 2021 when the Giants fired Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator. Quote, Garrett's offense scored the fewest touchdowns of any team since the start of last season, meaning 2020. The Giants hired him in January 2020 after he had a long stint as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. It had been 7 years since Garrett had called plays before returning to New York. He never hit his stride with the Giants despite a strong relationship with Daniel Jones.
See, and that's what teams, I don't think, at this point, I would be surprised if he got a coaching job, especially this cycle. And this may be the cycle where there may be the most coaching jobs available. It's 7 now, just like it was last year, but they could potentially be 1 or 2 more.
What other jobs do you think could come open?
Let me see. Well, Pittsburgh, I mean, you don't know if I know Mike Tomlin made it into the playoffs, but it was by the skin of his teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not advocating for Tomlin to get fired in Pittsburgh, but what if they get just blown out
by the Texans?
That's not, just because you made it to the playoffs doesn't mean that your job is safe. Hell, we saw that some years ago here.
Yes.
With the Titans.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean, especially there's been a lot, circulating around Mike Tomlin for the last 3 or 4 years.
The other one too, I think I heard Mike McDaniel say, I'm going to be the coach until they tell me I'm not. But I wonder about the Dolphins.
The Dolphins is another.
I don't know if there's been any reporting that he is absolutely staying, but the Dolphins are one. Aaron Glenn, I believe, is safe. I don't know if the Jets. Okay, I don't know if the Jets.
Cincinnati said Taylor is
Zach
safe.
Taylor
He's coming back.
Zach Taylor is coming back.
So there may.
I wonder about Miami. That's the one that
two
sticks
jobs
out to
that
me.
may end up coming available. So listen, if he may get another interview or 2 or 3 because of the amount of jobs that are open. But, if I'm the Titans, realistically, am I looking to hire Jason Garrett? No. But I get what you're saying from the standpoint of, because I said, even though I thought, listen, every organization has to satisfy the Rooney Rule. Every organization has to. When you have a coaching vacancy, I believe every organization has to, whether they're doing it because of that or not. You have to. So my thing is, would it? I don't know. It's just to me, for me. Um,
One Dexter says, while you think about that,
uh-huh.
one Dexter says, out of every single coaching candidate that has been named, Garrett is the only one where if they hired him, I'll quit being a Titans fan.
Well, yeah,
And one Dexter
again,
said people need to relax. It's just an interview. Yes, that's
and that's
absolutely
and that is
true.
what I'm saying.
But it's fun to get you
Yeah,
people all
exactly, and
excited.
that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, they're gonna bring people in here that they feel they gotta, interview because, like I said, satisfying whatever rule there's out there, and then there are gonna be other guys, like you said, that they, both that they did bring in because they want to know a little bit more about this person. Maybe they don't hire them as their head coach. They did the same thing a couple of years ago with before they hired Rabel.
LaFleur?
Yeah, they hired they interviewed LaFleur for the head coaching job. Well, they didn't give him the head coaching job, but he became the offensive coordinator. Now, I don't recommend that. Probably wouldn't be the best thing. You should let your head coach be the guy that wants to bring in a coordinator that they see eye to eye with. But it could be a situation where they're bringing in, a Raheem Morris or a Vance and see, okay, maybe if you're not our head coach, you can be a defensive coordinator. You can, be whatever. It would be nothing less than a defensive coordinator. But yeah, we're interviewing you. Yes, we're choosing to go a different direction, but you can be the defensive coordinator. So, I mean, that could happen.
615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the upcoming interviews, as been reported multiple places. Colts defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo tomorrow. Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy on Thursday. Jason Garrett on Friday. Former Browns coach Kevin Stefanski on Saturday. Former Falcons coach Raheem Morris next Monday. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show. Take your reaction. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. A reminder, the Predators wrap up their road trip tonight in Edmonton against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Oilers. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5 The Game. The Predators will be back in town tomorrow. Then they open a 4-game homestand, if I am not mistaken, on Thursday. Yes, a 4-game homestand on Thursday. So we'll be back at Bridgestone Arena on Thursday for the first time in like a month, it feels like. So it'll be nice to be back there. The Predators, one more game on the road trip. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Jeff. Jeff, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, gentlemen. I hope you all have a wonderful New Year.
You as well.
I have a question for you. Let's assume Mike Tomlin becomes available. Okay? So who is your choice for head coach? Tomlin or Harbaugh? I'll hang up and listen and have a wonderful day, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, Derek. I'll leave that one to you.
And this is where, when I say when all is equal, you may lean more toward the relationship part. I'm leaning toward John. I think Mike Tomlin is great. I mean, hell, his resume speaks for itself. But again, it's that personal relationship. If I was GM now, looking at the Titans as a whole in this team, because of what I said about Harbaugh earlier, I think he, in my personal opinion, I think a year off, re-energizing, and then getting back, you will get the best John Harbaugh. I think. Not to say that he will, if he got a job now, which I think he will, if he chooses to coach, you still wouldn't get a good John Harbaugh. But I think a year off, you'll get the best. So with that being said, I may, just because of that, Mike Tomlin. But my bias, I do have a bias toward John Harbaugh, obviously. I think personally, maybe he should take a year off and then come back. But either one of those guys, and I know the caller said pick one person, but either one of those guys would be wonderful here. I think they would, revitalize this organization.
So once again, the scheduled list of interviews for the Tennessee Titans over the next number of days: Lou Anarumo, Colts DC tomorrow. Chiefs OC, Matt Nagy on Thursday. Browns coach, ex-Browns coach, Kevin Stefanski on Saturday. Oops, I forgot one. Jason Garrett on Friday. Stefanski on Saturday. Former Falcons coach Raheem Morris on Sunday. So John Harbaugh, skyrockets to the top of the list of the best available coaches. Sorry, Kevin Stefanski. And Kevin Stefanski is interesting. We had a texter ask about Stefanski. So I saw this from Bill Barnwell of ESPN to trying to put Kevin Stefanski's tenure in Cleveland in context. Bill Barnwell said this: Kevin Stefanski with the Browns, 45-56. That's a .446 winning percentage, 2 playoff appearances, 1 playoff win. The other 11 Browns 2.0 coaches combined, 101 and 234. That's a .301 winning percentage, 1 playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins. Let me read to you quickly a list of the quarterbacks for the Browns post Baker Mayfield. Oh boy. Deshaun Watson, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, PJ Walker, Jeff Driscoll, and Bailey Zappi.
The who's who of quarterbacks, not
whatever the opposite of that is. And that's the one thing with Kevin Stefanski. Again, Kevin Stefanski is interviewing with the Titans on Saturday. That's the one thing that a lot of us are trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Did Kevin Stefanski do the best he could with the resources he had? The Browns traded every draft pick known to man for Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
Did Kevin Stefanski going 45-56, is that the best you could expect from Kevin Stefanski considering the personnel at his disposal? Is it the Cleveland stank that's all over him? I know you've said this before, Derek. How much of it is on Stefanski? How much of it is on the Cleveland Browns? Again, without knowing everything that's going on in Cleveland, Ohio, I think a lot of people would lean toward the fact that the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns. And the fact that Stefanski was a 2-time coach of the year with the Cleveland Browns and was only 11 games under 500. Yes, his offense certainly did not thrive in recent years, and that's supposed to be his calling card. But again, do I need to read the list of quarterbacks? Yes. Are you going to win games? I mean, look, he got Joe Flacco off the couch, and he won the Comeback Player of the Year award. So give him some credit for that. But when you've got Deshaun Watson, and I don't even know if
the land, that
who is Jeff Driscoll?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that name. He's been around the league, but Jeff Driscoll, you're expecting someone to win with Jeff Driscoll as your quarterback?
It's like, what was that? In the land of the misfit toys?
The island of misfit toys.
Misfit toys. Yeah, this is the island of
misfit quarterbacks.
Misfit quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's bad.
And listen, the organization as a whole, meaning Cleveland, they haven't given their fan base any hope in the last 10 years. I wonder how, but again, and I'm only looking at this situation. I'm not looking at the umpteen quarterbacks they had, in the organization, and, the 3 or 4 he had to play with in Chicago or here. It's how, like, that situation with the quarterbacks, how much of that was you or how much of that was the organization? Because again, that just the way that all played out, whether you are a Gabriel fan or Gabriel Dillon fan or Shedeur Sanders fan or Joe Flacco fan or Deshaun, it doesn't matter. How that whole thing was handled with the quarterbacks at the beginning of the season, I think it was just odd. So how much of that was Stefanski, or was it the organization that was really pulling the strings and he was just the puppet? And he was just, okay, I'm doing whatever they tell me. So that's what I would want to know.
I feel like if you're Browns fans, though, you would go back to 1999.
Yeah.
They haven't found the quarterback. I mean, there's still that jersey that goes around every year that has a quarterback from 1999 for the Browns into now. And it's a long list. It covers the jersey.
Yeah, and that's the sign of a organization that has not operated in a winning fashion. Now, listen, they've been to the playoffs since 99, from 99 to now a few times, but it was never anything sustainable for that franchise, and the quarterback position wasn't sustainable for that franchise. So you throw Stefanski in there, and he wins 2-time coach of the year. He's 2-time coach of the year in Cleveland. But then you have this whole, dumpster fire of a quarterback, whatever they call it. It just didn't make sense. So how much of that was you, or if it was you, or was it the organization and they were just, pulling the strings and you couldn't do anything about it?
The track record would seem to suggest that it's more the organization than Kevin Stefanski. And that doesn't mean that Kevin Stefanski is blameless in what happened in Cleveland. But I do think a lot of people are pointing toward the ineptitude
of the
franchise versus the coach. Ricky says, as a Jets fan, Robert Saleh, this guy was excellent. Can't help that Aaron Rodgers ruined the team and then sucked with all his friends around him. And then he had Zach Wilson as quarterback. Great defense, did well, like him a lot. I do think Robert Saleh is going to be at the top of a lot of people's lists. We talked about what Mike Borgonzi said, and one of the maybe breadcrumbs he gave us today at his news conference. He talked about accountability and being demanding and all of those things. And from afar, it appears that Robert Saleh is that kind of guy. And look, it's hard we know that Aaron Rodgers, I can't think of another word to describe it. He's sort of a black hole, right? Everything, he absorbs everything around him. And there were a lot of headlines about Saleh and Rodgers not showing up to training camp or mandatory mini camp or whatever the hell it was, because he was in like Egypt or something. I don't remember what it was. But I think Saleh rehabbed his image working with the San Francisco 49ers. He can't interview yet because the 49ers play in the playoffs this weekend. I imagine once the 49ers are out or he is eligible to interview, his name is going to pop up everywhere. But I do think that people looking for the alpha type, I mean, have you seen Robert Saleh? The man has been chiseled out of stone. So
he had to get that jet stank off of him. So he had to go back home to San Fran.
Yes. He's one of the like if I'm putting together a roster of like, if I'm at a bar, a crowded bar, and I have to pick 3 NFL head coaches to help me out of this bar with my life, like 3 NFL coaches, whether it's a head coach or not. Robert Saleh is probably on my short list. Mike Vrabel's definitely on that list. Dan Campbell, but Saleh's on that list. Saleh, I think, could crush some skulls.
Kneecappers.
So, right.
They go after the kneecaps.
Right. No, well, Campbell's going for the kneecaps. Saleh's going for the skull crushing. So, I mean, that again, this is all from afar. I imagine that Saleh will be on the short list, but huge news in the NFL today. John Harbaugh fired after 18 years. And look, everybody runs their course, but nearly 20 years coaching in any sport nowadays is unheard of. I mean, with the turnover, I mean, Pete Carroll, I know Pete Carroll is old, but Pete Carroll lasted 1 season in Las Vegas. And shout out to John Harbaugh, nearly 20 years. That's outstanding, rare longevity. He'll have a job tomorrow if he wants it.
Listen, that organization, Baltimore, sort of like Pittsburgh. They've only had so many owners, so many GMs, and so many head coaches. Baltimore has, since they moved back to Baltimore, they've only had 3 coaches, I believe. Well, no, 2. They only had
three coaches.
Yeah, it was 3. Marshall Broda, and that was early on when they first moved back there, and then Billick, and then John. Pittsburgh is the same way. So you're talking, and GMs. They only had 2 GMs, and that was Ozzie and then DaCosta. Now, that's stability. That's having a winning organization. But I mean, after being there 18 years, your time comes, and an organization or the coach has to make a decision, just like New England made a decision with Bill Belichick. Now the Baltimore Ravens have made a decision with John Harbaugh, and we will see where he lands. And I know a bunch of people in Nashville hope that his final destination is here in Nashville. So we'll see.
That'll do it for us today. We'll be back at 3:00 tomorrow, as will Willie Donick. Willie's been out of town for like a month. It's not really been a month, but it feels like a month. But he will be back tomorrow, live and in living color in Nashville, Tennessee. We can't wait to see our friend Willie Donick. The Predators have one more road game tonight, 8 p.m. puck drop against the Edmonton Oilers, 7 p.m. pregame, right here on 102.5 The Game. Have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music. Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. See you tomorrow at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Peace.